He spent his entire savings meant for new shoes on feeding stray puppies. When the man in the expensive suit knocked on his door, his mother couldn't believe what he offered. Jamal's worn sneakers scraped against the concrete as he walked home from school. The sole of his left shoe had started to come loose last week, and he had to drag his foot slightly to keep it from flapping. 3 blocks ahead, the neat lawns and 2-story houses of the wealthy neighborhood stretched out like a different world. A Mercedes SUV pulled into one of the driveways. A man in a suit stepped out, briefcase in hand. Jamal dropped his eyes to the sidewalk, counting the cracks like he always did. 43 steps to pass the nice houses. He'd counted them every day for the past year. His backpack felt heavy. Mrs. Rodriguez had assigned extra math homework today. Not that it mattered. No one would be home to check if he did it anyway. Mom wouldn't be back until after 9 like always. Double shifts at the diner meant empty afternoons. At least it's pizza day tomorrow, he muttered to himself, patting the wrinkled $5 bill in his pocket. The only day he got to buy lunch instead of bringing peanut butter sandwiches. A whimper stopped him mid-step. Jamal froze, tilting his head to listen. There it was again, a high-pitched cry coming from behind the dumpster in the empty lot between Martinez Grocery and the abandoned laundromat. "Hello." His voice came out smaller than he meant it to. Another whimper answered. Jamal set his backpack down and crept toward the dumpster. The metal sides were covered in rust and graffiti. As he got closer, he could smell rotting vegetables from the grocery's garbage. He peeked around the corner. 2 tiny puppies huddled together in a nest of newspapers, their ribs showing through patchy fur. One black, one brown, both skinny as rails. The brown one looked up at him and whined. "Hey there," Jamal whispered, crouching down. "You guys okay?" The black puppy tried to stand, but wobbled on weak legs. Its tongue darted out to lick its sibling's ear. Neither could have been more than a few weeks old. Jamal's stomach twisted. He knew that hungry look. He'd seen it in the mirror last year when Mom lost her job at the factory. 2 months of nothing but rice and beans, watching Mom pretend she wasn't hungry so he could have the bigger portion. The shoe money jar sat on his dresser at home. $43.75 exactly. He'd been saving since January, picking up coins from the sidewalk, doing odd jobs for Mrs. Chin next door. The Nike outlet store had the shoes he wanted on clearance for $45. Just one more week of saving, and they'd be his. His current shoes weren't that bad, really. The sole could probably last another month if he was careful. And the puppies? "Wait here," he told them. "I'll be right back." Martinez Grocery was empty except for old Mr. Martinez behind the counter, doing his crossword puzzle. Jamal grabbed a bag of dog food from the bottom shelf, the cheap stuff, store brand. $12.99. "Since when you got a dog, kid?" Mr. Martinez asked as he rang it up. "It's for a friend," Jamal mumbled, counting out crumpled bills from his pocket. Back at the dumpster, he tore open the bag. The puppy's head shot up at the sound, noses twitching. He poured a small pile of kibble on a flattened piece of cardboard. The brown puppy reached the food first, scarfing down pieces so fast it choked. The black one wasn't far behind. Jamal sat cross-legged on the ground, watching them eat. Their tails wagged weakly. "Slow down," he said. "There's plenty more." He stayed until they finished, their little bellies round and full. The black puppy crawled into his lap, while the brown one curled up against his knee. Their breathing settled into soft snores. Jamal checked his phone. 5:47 p.m. Mom wouldn't be home for hours. He could stay a little longer. "I'll come back tomorrow," he promised, carefully moving them back to their newspaper nest. "You guys just gotta hang on, okay?" Walking home, his backpack felt lighter somehow, even though nothing had changed. His shoes still flopped against the sidewalk. The nice houses still loomed ahead. But for the first time in a long time, he had something to look forward to tomorrow besides pizza day. In his room, he emptied his pockets onto his desk. The remainder of his shoe money clinked sadly in the jar. $30.76 now. Not enough for the Nikes anymore. He picked up the jar, studying his reflection in the glass. Worth it, he decided, and set it back down. That night, he dreamed of warm fur and wagging tails, of full bellies and grateful eyes. In his sleep, he smiled. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain was coming. Jamal sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. The puppies were still out there, with nothing but newspapers to keep them dry. He'd have to figure something out tomorrow. For now, all he could do was lie back down and listen to the storm roll in, hoping their little nest would keep them safe until morning. His old shoes sat by the door, the loose sole a reminder of his choice. But when he closed his eyes, he didn't see Nikes anymore. He saw two pairs of trusting eyes, looking up at him like he was their whole world. And somehow, that felt better than new shoes ever could. The rain started to fall. The cardboard boxes were soaked through. Jamal stood in the morning drizzle, staring at the soggy mess behind the dumpster. The puppies huddled together, shivering, their fur matted and dirty from the rain. "I'm sorry," he whispered, kneeling beside them. "I should have built you something better." The brown puppy sneezed. The black one let out a weak cough. Jamal looked around the empty lot. There had to be something he could use. Behind Martinez's grocery, he spotted some wooden pallets leaning against the wall. An old plastic tarp fluttered nearby, caught on a chain-link fence. It took 4 trips to drag everything behind the dumpster. His school uniform was filthy now, but he didn't care. He propped 2 pallets against each other to make a tent shape, then draped the tarp over them. The third pallet became the floor, lined with fresh newspapers from the recycling bin. "Come on, guys," he coaxed, lifting the puppies into their new shelter. "It's not much, but it's better than nothing." The clock on his phone showed 7:45 a.m. School started in 15 minutes. Crap! He sprinted the whole way, sneaker flapping with each step. Ms. Thompson, his first period teacher, gave him a hard look as he slid into his seat, breathing heavy. "Nice of you to join us, Jamal." A few kids snickered. Marcus, who sat next to him, wrinkled his nose. "You smell like wet dog," he whispered. Jamal ignored him, trying to focus on the lesson. But his mind kept drifting back to the puppies. Would the shelter hold? Was it enough food for the day? The black one's cough bothered him. At lunch, he sat alone like usual. The cafeteria buzzed with conversation and laughter. Today was pizza day, but his $5 had gone to buying more dog food instead. "Hey, poor boy," Marcus called from 2 tables over. "What happened to your shoes? They finally giving up?" Jamal hunched lower over his peanut butter sandwich. His shoe money jar sat nearly empty on his dresser at home. $30 wasn't enough for new ones anymore, not after buying food and supplies for the puppies. The afternoon dragged. During last period, the black puppy's cough kept echoing in his head. It hadn't sounded right. Normal puppies didn't cough like that. As soon as the final bell rang, he rushed to the library computers. Google told him puppies could get something called parvo. The symptoms matched: coughing, lethargy, poor appetite. Treatment required a vet visit. He checked local veterinary clinics. The cheapest emergency visit was $80. Just the exam, not counting medicine. "You closing up, honey?" The librarian stood nearby, keys jingling. Outside, the rain had stopped. Jamal walked slower than usual, brain churning. Maybe he could mow lawns this weekend. Wash cars. Something. The puppies were awake when he reached them, tails wagging weakly. The shelter had held up okay, but the black one's cough sounded worse. "Mr. Martinez?" Jamal stuck his head into the grocery store. "You need any help? I can stock shelves or sweep or anything." The old man looked up from his newspaper. "Sorry, kid. Business is slow. Can't afford extra help right now." Back home, Jamal dumped his backpack on his bed. Mom's note sat on the kitchen counter. "Working late again. Leftovers in fridge. Love you." He checked the jar on his dresser. $30.76 stared back at him. Not even half what he needed. That night, he lay awake listening to rain start up again. In his mind, he could hear the black puppy coughing. What if it got worse? What if? He squeezed his eyes shut. No, he couldn't think like that. Morning came too slowly. Jamal was up before dawn, checking on the puppies. The black one barely touched its food. "Please," he whispered, stroking its head. "Just hang on. I'll figure something out." At school, he could barely focus. Every cough he'd heard last night played on repeat in his head. During lunch, he overheard some kids talking about washing cars for spending money. "My dad gives me $20 to wash his car," one boy said. $20. For cars would be enough. Jamal spent his lunch period writing signs on notebook paper, CAR wash, $20. Saturday after school, he taped them to light poles around the neighborhood. His hands shook as he pressed the tape down. What if nobody came? What if it rained again? The black puppy was sleeping when he checked on them that evening. Its breathing sounded raspy. The brown one whined, nudging its sibling with its nose. Jamal sat with them until dark, telling them stories about school, about his mom, about anything he could think of. His voice cracked sometimes, but he kept talking. "I'm trying," he whispered. "I'm really trying." That night, he dreamed of empty jars and raspy coughs, of wet fur and sad eyes. He woke up crying, his pillow damp with tears. The clock read 3:17 a.m. Outside, the rain fell steadily. His signs would be ruined by morning. Jamal curled into a ball under his blanket, feeling smaller than he ever had. All his plans, all his efforts, and still not enough. Never enough. In the dark, he whispered a prayer to whoever might be listening. "Please, just help me help them." But only the rain answered, drumming against his window like tiny fists, demanding more than he had to give. Sunday morning light filtered through Jamal's window. He blinked awake to the sound of movement in the kitchen. Mom was home early for once. "Jamal," her voice carried down the hall. "Can you come here, please?" Something in her tone made his stomach drop. He found her standing at his doorway, the empty shoe savings jar in her hands. "Baby, what happened to your money?" She turned the jar, examining it from all angles, as if the missing cash might reappear. "Did someone take it?" Jamal's throat went dry. "No, Mom. I spent it. Spent it?" Her eyebrows shot up. "On what? And where are those new shoes you've been saving for?" He stared at the floor, at his ratty sneakers with the flopping sole. "I didn't buy shoes." "Jamal Thomas, look at me." She set the jar down, crossing her arms. "What's going on?" His eyes burned. "I can show you better than I can tell you." The walk to the dumpster felt longer than usual. His mom's work shoes clicked against the sidewalk behind him, a steady rhythm of approaching judgment. When they reached the lot, he heard her sigh. "Baby, if this is about drugs or something, no." He spun around. "Mom, I promise it's not that. Just look." He led her behind the dumpster. The puppies were awake, the brown one wagging its tail at their approach. The black one managed a weak thump but stayed lying down. His mom's sharp intake of breath said everything. "They were starving," Jamal said quickly. "I couldn't just leave them. And then it rained, so I had to build them shelter, and the black one got sick, but I can't afford a vet," and Dash slowed down. She crouched beside the makeshift shelter, examining the puppies. "How long have you been feeding them?" "About a week." He swallowed hard. "Are you mad?" She was quiet for a long moment, just watching the puppies. The black one coughed, a wet, rattling sound that made her frown. "That doesn't sound good." "I know." His voice cracked. "I tried to save up for a vet, but Mr. Martinez doesn't need help, and nobody wanted their cars washed. And I don't know what else to do, and Dash, baby." She stood up, pulling him into a tight hug. "Breathe." He hadn't realized he was crying until he felt the wet spot on her uniform. She held him like that for a while, one hand rubbing his back like she used to when he was little. "I'm not mad," she said finally. "I'm proud that you wanted to help. But we barely have enough for our own food, let alone Dash. They'll die if we don't help them." The words burst out of him. "Mom, please. I'll get a job. I'll skip lunch. Anything, Dash, hey." A sharp voice cut through their conversation. Mr. Peterson from the corner house stormed toward them, face red. "I thought I smelled dogs back here. This is private property." Jamal stepped between Mr. Peterson and the puppies. "They're not hurting anything. They're making a mess, attracting vermin. I'm calling animal control." "No." Jamal's hands balled into fists. "You can't." "Sir." His mom stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "These puppies are sick. They need help. Not my problem." Mr. Peterson pulled out his phone. "They need to go." "Please," Jamal begged. "Just give us one more day. We'll figure something out." Mr. Peterson was already dialing. "Animal control be here in an hour. Get them out by then, or they'll do it for you." Jamal's mom grabbed his shoulder before he could argue more. "We heard you, sir. Come on, baby." "Mom, we can't dash show." She squeezed his shoulder. "Let me think." They walked home in silence. Jamal's mind raced. Maybe they could hide the puppies in his room, or in the basement, or a black SUV pulled up to their curb. "Go inside," his mom said. "But dash now, Jamal." He watched through the living room window as a man in an expensive suit stepped out of the SUV. His mom straightened her uniform, walking to meet him. Jamal pressed his face against the glass, heart pounding. The man was talking, gesturing with his hands. His mom's shoulders tensed. "Please," he thought. "Please don't let this be more bad news." The man pointed toward the empty lot. His mom nodded slowly. Jamal's fingers dug into the windowsill. Everything he cared about, the puppies, his mom, their future, seemed to hang on this conversation happening on their cracked sidewalk. The rain clouds gathering overhead felt like an omen. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Time was running out. The man in the suit walked toward their front door. Jamal backed away from the window, heart hammering against his ribs. His mom's key turned in the lock. "Jamal," she called. "Come here, please." He stepped into the hallway. The man towered in their doorway, his suit probably worth more than their monthly rent. His gray hair was neatly trimmed, his shoes polished to a shine. "So," the man said, "you're the young man I've been watching." Jamal's mouth went dry. "Watching? Richard Thompson?" The man extended his hand. "I live in the house with the blue shutters. The one you pass every day." Jamal shook his hand weakly, remembering the Mercedes SUV he always saw parked there. "Sir," his mom started, "if this is about the puppies, dash, it is." Mr. Thompson's expression softened. "May I come in?" They sat in their small living room, the worn couch creaking under Mr. Thompson's weight. Jamal perched on the edge of the armchair, ready to bolt. "I've seen you," Mr. Thompson said, "every morning and afternoon, walking past my house, counting your steps. Always the same number." Jamal's face burned. 43 steps. "Yes." Mr. Thompson nodded. "And then last week, something changed. You started taking a different route. Rushing. Coming home with dog food from Martinez's store. How did you dash?" "I own the building." Mr. Thompson smiled slightly. "Mr. Martinez tells me everything." Thunder cracked outside. The black puppy's cough echoed in Jamal's memory. "They're going to take them," he blurted. "Animal control." Mr. Peterson called, and dash, "I know." Mr. Thompson held up a hand. "I heard the conversation. That's why I'm here." Jamal's mom leaned forward. "Sir, we're trying to figure something out. If we could just have a little time, dash. Time isn't the issue, Mrs. Thomas." Mr. Thompson turned to Jamal. "Tell me why." "Why what?" "Why did you spend your shoe money on those puppies?" Jamal's throat tightened. "They were hungry. You could have called animal control yourself. Or ignored them like everyone else did." "No." The word came out harder than he meant it to. "I couldn't." "Why not?" "Because—" Jamal's hands clenched in his lap. "Because I know what it feels like. To be hungry. To have people walk past like you don't exist." The room fell silent except for the rain against the windows. Mr. Thompson studied him, eyes unreadable. "And the shelter you built?" "It wasn't good enough." Jamal's voice cracked. "The rain got through. And now the black one's sick. And I can't afford a vet. And they're going to take them away and dash." "Jamal." His mom touched his arm. He realized he was crying again. Mr. Thompson reached into his suit jacket, pulling out a handkerchief. He passed it to Jamal. "Do you know what I do for a living, son?" Jamal wiped his eyes. "You're rich." A surprised laugh burst from Mr. Thompson. "That's not a job. I'm the CEO of Thompson Industries. We manufacture medical equipment, among other things. But my wife—" He paused, something flickering across his face. "My late wife ran an animal rescue." Outside, a car door slammed. Jamal jumped up, rushing to the window. A white van with animal control on the side had pulled up to the empty lot. "No," he whispered. He turned to Mr. Thompson. "Please, you have to help them." "Why should I?" "Because—" Jamal's mind raced. "Because they deserve a chance. Because they trust me. Because dash. Because you love them," Mr. Thompson finished softly. "After just a week." "Yes." The word came out like a prayer. Mr. Thompson stood, straightening his jacket. "Mrs. Thomas, your son has been spending every spare dollar on those puppies. Skipping meals to feed them. Building shelters in the rain. Trying to earn money for their medical care." "I know," she said quietly. "He's always had a big heart." "Indeed." Mr. Thompson moved to the door. "Well, we should go stop animal control before they take them. Jamal's head snapped up. What? Those puppies need proper medical care. Warm beds. Regular meals. Mr. Thompson opened the door. My house has all of those things, and a very empty dog run that hasn't been used since Sarah passed. You? Jamal could barely breathe. You want to take them? Unless you prefer animal control, do it. Jamal was already running past him, out into the rain. He heard his mom and Mr. Thompson following, their footsteps splashing on the wet sidewalk. The animal control officer was approaching the dumpster, net in hand. Wait! Jamal skidded to a stop in front of her. They're not strays. They're Mr. Thompson's dogs. The officer turned as Mr. Thompson walked up, his expensive shoes now muddy. Richard Thompson, he said, showing his ID. There's been a misunderstanding. Those are my puppies. This young man has been helping care for them while I was away on business. The officer looked skeptical. We got a complaint from Mr. Peterson, yes. A misunderstanding. Mr. Thompson's voice carried quiet authority. I'll be taking them to my personal vet immediately. Jamal held his breath. The officer looked between them, then shrugged. Your puppies, your business. She headed back to her van. Just keep them off other people's property. When she drove away, Jamal sagged with relief. But then reality hit him. You're really taking them? Mr. Thompson crouched beside the shelter. Unless you have a better solution? The black puppy coughed again. The brown one pressed against its sibling, protective. Well, Jamal swallowed hard. Will I get to see them? Mr. Thompson smiled, gentle and real. I think we can arrange something. He stood, turning to Jamal's mom. In fact, Mrs. Thomas, I'd like to discuss several arrangements with you. Perhaps over coffee. Rain soaked through Jamal's shirt as he watched Mr. Thompson carefully lift the puppies. They settled into his arms like they belonged there. Maybe they did. Coming, Mr. Thompson called over his shoulder. Jamal looked at his mom. She nodded, a strange smile on her face. Together, they walked toward the black SUV, leaving the empty shelter behind. The inside of Mr. Thompson's SUV smelled like leather. Jamal sat in the back, the puppies curled up in his lap. Their fur left damp spots on his jeans, but he didn't care. The black one's breathing still sounded raspy. Dr. Chin will meet us at the clinic, Mr. Thompson said from the driver's seat. Best veterinarian in the city. Jamal's mom shifted in the passenger seat. Mr. Thompson, we can't afford Sarah's foundation will cover it. Mr. Thompson's eyes met Jamal's in the rearview mirror. My wife's Animal Rescue Foundation. She'd have wanted this. They pulled into a parking lot marked Chin Veterinary Hospital. A woman in scrubs waited by the door. Richard, she nodded to Mr. Thompson, then peered at the puppies. These are our patients? The black one's coughing, Jamal said quickly. And they're both really skinny. And let's get them inside. Dr. Chin led them through bright hallways to an exam room. How long have you been caring for them? A week. Jamal carefully set them on the metal table. I've been feeding them, but Dr. Chin's hands moved efficiently, checking eyes, ears, temperatures. The brown puppy squirmed. The black one just lay there. Pneumonia, she said finally. The black one. Probably from exposure. The brown one's healthier, but both are malnourished. Can you fix them? Jamal's voice cracked. With proper treatment, yes. She turned to Mr. Thompson. They'll need antibiotics, vaccines, proper nutrition, and warmth. Lots of it. Mr. Thompson nodded. My house is ready. Your house? Dr. Chin raised an eyebrow. Richard, you haven't taken in dogs since Sarah. He touched the wedding ring on his finger. I know. Jamal watched the puppies receive shots, medicine fluids. The black one whimpered once, a sound that cut straight to his heart. They'll need to stay overnight for observation, Dr. Chin said. You can pick them up tomorrow. But Jamal started. They're in good hands. Mr. Thompson touched his shoulder. Let's get some coffee. We need to talk. The cafe across the street was warm and busy. Mr. Thompson ordered 4 hot chocolates and a plate of muffins. Now then, he settled into a booth. Mrs. Thomas, how long have you been working double shifts? She wrapped her hands around her cup. Since James left. 3 years ago. 2 jobs, single mother, trying to make ends meet. He nodded. And still raised a son who'd spend his last dollar helping hungry puppies. Jamal stared into his hot chocolate. The whipped cream was starting to melt. I have a proposition. Mr. Thompson leaned forward. Thompson Industries needs an executive assistant. Someone organized, hardworking, able to handle pressure. The pay is significantly better than 2 service jobs combined. Jamal's mom went very still. Mr. Thompson, full benefits, regular hours, and he smiled slightly. The office is just down the hall from mine, where Sarah's old dog run is, where 2 certain puppies will be spending their days. You want me to work for you? Her voice shook. But I don't have the experience, Dash. You have exactly what I need. Mr. Thompson's voice was firm. Someone who raised a child like Jamal understands responsibility, dedication, and heart. The rest can be learned. Jamal looked between them, hardly daring to breathe. His mom's hands trembled around her cup. And the puppies? She asked softly. We'll need regular visitors. Mr. Thompson turned to Jamal. Someone to play with them during lunch breaks. Check their recovery progress. Maybe help train them once they're stronger. Really? Jamal sat up straighter. You'd let me? On one condition. Mr. Thompson's eyes crinkled. You use your next shoe savings for actual shoes. A laugh bubbled up in Jamal's throat, surprised and real. His mom was crying but smiling too. When? She wiped her eyes. When would I start? Monday? Mr. Thompson pulled out a business card. Come by tomorrow at 10. We'll handle paperwork, show you around. Jamal can help settle the puppies into their new home. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds as they walked back to the car. What do you want to name them? Mr. Thompson asked suddenly. Jamal blinked. I get to name them? Well, someone has to. He thought about it. Hope, he said finally. The brown one. Because she stayed strong for her brother. And the black one? Jamal remembered counting steps past nice houses, dreaming of better things. Chance. Because everybody deserves one. Mr. Thompson's smile was soft. Sarah would have liked those names. They drove home in comfortable silence. Jamal watched familiar streets pass, everything looking different somehow. Brighter. At their house, Mr. Thompson handed Jamal's mom a folder. Paperwork, directions, everything you need for tomorrow. She held it like it might disappear. Mr. Thompson, I don't know how to thank you. Thank your son? He looked at Jamal. For reminding an old man what Sarah always said. Sometimes the biggest hearts come in the smallest packages. That night, Jamal lay in bed, unable to sleep. His mind kept going back to the puppies' hope and chance in their hospital cages. Tomorrow, they'd have a real home. His mom would have a real job. And he had his shoe money jar back out, a single dollar inside. Starting over. But this time, when he looked at his reflection in the glass, he didn't see a poor kid with worn-out shoes. He saw someone who could make a difference. Saturday morning came early. Jamal woke before his alarm, stomach tight with anticipation. His mom was already up, trying on different outfits in front of her mirror. The blue shirt, he said from her doorway. It matches your eyes. She jumped. Baby, you scared me. She touched the blue blouse. You think this looks professional enough? Mr. Thompson already wants you. You don't have to impress him. Still, she smoothed invisible wrinkles. I want to do this right. The drive to Thompson Industries took 20 minutes. The building stretched toward the sky, all glass and steel. Jamal's reflection looked small in the windows. Ready? His mom squeezed his hand. The lobby felt bigger than their whole house. A weekend security guard nodded to them, already expecting their arrival. The elevator rode smooth and silent to the top floor. Mr. Thompson waited by the reception desk, casual in weekend clothes, but still somehow looking important. Right on time. Let's start with the tour. They followed him down wide hallways. He pointed out offices, conference rooms, the break room. Jamal only half listened, waiting for what really mattered. Finally, they reached a glass door at the end of the hall. Mr. Thompson produced a key. And this was Sarah's space. The room opened into a covered outdoor area. Artificial grass covered the floor. Toys lay scattered around, balls, ropes, squeaky things. One wall held cabinets marked supplies and medicine. Sarah rescued dozens of dogs over the years, Mr. Thompson said softly. Nursed them back to health right here, found them homes, after she passed. Well, it's been empty too long. A familiar bark made Jamal spin around. Dr. Chin stood in the doorway, holding two squirming puppies. "Look who's feeling better," she smiled. Hope wriggled free first, racing to Jamal on steadier legs than before. Chance followed more slowly, but his cough sounded less wet. "The antibiotics are working," Dr. Chen said. "Chance's pneumonia is responding well." They both ate a full breakfast. Jamal knelt, letting them climb all over him. Their fur felt clean and soft, properly brushed. Hope's tail wagged so hard her whole body shook. "The daycare staff will check on them hourly," Mr. Thompson explained. "They'll have regular vet visits, proper training. And," he smiled at Jamal's mom, "your office connects directly here. You can keep an eye on them while you work." "Mr. Thompson," she shook her head. "This is too much." Sarah would disagree. He touched the wedding ring again. "Now, shall we handle the paperwork?" Jamal stayed with the puppies while the adults went to Mr. Thompson's office. Hope brought him toy after toy, proud of each one. Chance curled up in his lap, still tired but clearly stronger. "You guys hit the jackpot," he told them. "This is way better than newspapers behind a dumpster." A tennis ball rolled to his feet. He threw it, watching Hope chase it down. Her nails clicked on the artificial grass as she ran. "Good girl." The praise came naturally now. She preened under it. When Mr. Thompson and his mom returned, she was holding a stack of papers and trying not to cry. "It's all set," Mr. Thompson said. "We'll see you Monday at 8. Jamal's chest tightened. "Time to go." Hope seemed to sense it. She pressed against his legs, whining softly. Chance lifted his head, dark eyes worried. "I'll be back," Jamal promised. "Real soon?" "Every day at lunch if you want," Mr. Thompson added. "The school's only 10 minutes away. My driver can pick you up." Jamal stared at him. "Really? They need proper socialization?" Mr. Thompson's eyes twinkled. "And you're already bonded. Saying goodbye still hurt." Hope cried when they left, her howls following them down the hall. Chance just watched with those trusting eyes. "They'll be okay," his mom said in the elevator. "Better than okay." "I know." Jamal wiped his eyes. "It's just hard to let go, even when it's the right thing." The security guard nodded as they left. Outside, the sun felt too bright. "Ice cream," his mom suggested. "We should celebrate." They found a small shop 2 blocks away. Jamal got chocolate. His mom got mint chip. They sat at a sticky table by the window. "You did good, baby." She reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "Real good? You think they'll remember me?" She laughed. "After a week of being their only friend? Their guardian angel? Baby, those dogs will never forget you." "Guardian angel?" He poked at his ice cream. "I just fed them. You gave up everything you'd saved. Built them shelter. Stayed with them in the rain." She shook her head. "That's more than feeding. Mr. Thompson could have bought them fancy food any time. Better shelter. But he didn't." She leaned forward. "Sometimes it's not about what you give, but that you give it all. You saw them when nobody else did. That matters more than money." Jamal thought about that on the drive home. About seeing versus looking away. About empty shoe jars and full hearts. His old sneakers still flopped when he walked. But somehow, they didn't bother him as much anymore. That night, he dreamed of Hope and Chance in their new home. Playing with toys, sleeping in warm beds, getting stronger every day. In the dream, they looked back at him and wagged their tails, like they were saying thank you. Or maybe see you soon. Monday morning felt different. Jamal's mom hummed while making breakfast, wearing her new blue blouse. She'd been up since 5, practicing her computer skills on old typing tutorials. "You'll do great," Jamal told her, finishing his toast. "From your mouth to God's ears." She checked her reflection one last time. "Mr. Thompson's driver is picking you up at lunch, right?" "Yeah." His heart lifted at the thought. "How are they?" The night staff said they slept well. Chance barely coughed. She grabbed her purse. "Ready?" The walk to school felt shorter somehow. Even passing the nice houses didn't bother him today. His shoes still flopped, but he'd learned to step carefully to minimize the noise. First period had just started when the office called him down. Miss Thompson paused her lesson, frowning. "Take your things, Jamal," his classmates whispered as he packed up. Marcus snickered something about finally getting expelled. The principal's secretary pointed him to a chair. "Wait here." 5 minutes later, Mr. Thompson walked in, carrying a shopping bag. "Sir?" Jamal stood up. Is something wrong with the puppies? They're fine. Mr. Thompson smiled. But I believe we had an agreement about shoes. He pulled a Nike box from the bag. The exact model Jamal had been saving for. I can't dash, you can? Mr. Thompson's voice was firm. Consider it back pay for a week of dog sitting. The shoes fit perfectly. Jamal stared at his feet, at the clean white sneakers with their intact soles. The old ones? Mr. Thompson held out a trash bag. Jamal dropped them in without regret. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thompson corrected, for reminding an old man what matters. He checked his watch. Now, get back to class. I'll see you at lunch. Walking back to Ms. Thompson's room felt like floating. His feet didn't drag or flop. They moved sure and steady, like they knew where they belonged. Marcus's jaw dropped when Jamal walked in. Other kids whispered, pointing at his new shoes. Nice kicks, someone said. Jamal just smiled. The morning crawled by. When the lunch bell finally rang, a sleek black car waited in the pickup lane. The driver opened the door like Jamal was somebody important. The puppies have been waiting, the driver said, smiling. Thompson Industries looked different in daylight, less intimidating. The security guard, Bill, according to his name tag, waved Jamal through. Your mom's doing great, he said. Quick learner. The elevator needed a key card for the top floor. Jamal's heart pounded as it climbed. Hope's bark greeted him before the doors opened. She ran to him, whole body wiggling. Chance followed more slowly, but just as happy. Hey guys. Jamal dropped to his knees, letting them climb all over him. Miss me? They've been watching the elevator all morning. His mom stood in the connecting door to her office, looking professional and happy. Drive okay? Yeah. He threw a ball for Hope. How's the job? Good. Busy. She watched him play with the puppies. Mr. Thompson's patient. Says I'm picking it up fast. Hope brought the ball back, dropping it in his lap. Her coat shone in the sunlight streaming through the windows. They had their morning meds, his mom said. Chance's cough is almost gone. As if to prove it, Chance barked, clear and strong, no wheezing. He pawed at Jamal's new shoes, curious. Yeah, buddy. Jamal scratched his ears. No more floppy soles. The lunch hour passed too quickly. Hope cried again when he left, but softer this time. Like she knew he'd be back. Tomorrow, he promised. The afternoon classes flew by. Even Marcus's snide comments about charity shoes couldn't touch him. After school, he walked home past the empty lot. The makeshift shelter still stood behind the dumpster, abandoned but somehow proud. Like it had done its job. His mom got home at 5:30, carrying takeout bags. Celebrating, she said when he raised his eyebrows. First day went well. Really well. They ate Chinese food on the couch, trading fortune cookies. Hers said, new beginnings bring new blessings. His said, kindness returns tenfold. Think it's true? He asked. She looked around their small living room, at his new shoes by the door, at the genuine smile on her son's face. Already is, baby? That night, he did his homework at the kitchen table while she practiced more typing tutorials. The house felt different, warmer somehow, like Hope had moved in when they weren't looking. His phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Thompson, a photo of Hope and Chance curled up in their new beds, sleeping peacefully. Your guardian angel duties paid off, the message read. Jamal saved the photo, set it as his background. In his room, the empty shoe jar sat on his dresser. He dropped his fortune cookie paper inside. Kindness returns tenfold. Maybe it wasn't about filling jars anymore. Maybe it was about emptying them for the right reasons. His new shoes stood neat by his bed, ready for tomorrow. No more counting steps past nice houses. No more dragging feet. Just moving forward. 2 weeks passed in a blur of new routines. Jamal's mom mastered the office computer system faster than anyone expected. Mr. Thompson started giving her more responsibilities, praising her attention to detail. Like mother, like son, he'd say, watching her organize his chaotic schedule. The puppies grew stronger every day. Hope learned to sit, stay, and come on command. Chance's cough disappeared completely, replaced by a deep bark that made the windows rattle. Jamal's grades started improving too. Something about regular lunches with the puppies made afternoons easier. His math teacher noticed first, Your focus has improved, Ms. Rodriguez said, handing back a quiz marked 92%. Whatever changed, keep it up. Even Marcus stopped making comments about the shoes. Hard to mock Charity when it walked proudly down the hall, head high, grades rising. Friday afternoon, Mr. Thompson caught Jamal before his usual puppy visit. Got a minute? His office felt warm, lived in. Photos of Sarah with various dogs covered one wall. She had the same kind eyes as her husband. The puppies are doing well, Mr. Thompson said, settling behind his desk. Dr. Chin says they're ready for their next round of shots. That's good, right? Very. He leaned forward. But that's not why I called you in. Your mother tells me you're doing better in school. Jamal shifted in his chair. Yes, sir. Good grades, strong character. Mr. Thompson nodded. Sarah's foundation offers scholarships, for students who show promise. Scholarships? For college. Still a few years off, but he smiled. Something to think about. The words followed Jamal to the puppy room. College. Real possibility now, not just dream. Hope greeted him with her usual enthusiasm, showing off her new trick, rolling over for treats. Chance brought him a rope toy, ready to play tug-of-war. Guess what? He told them as they played. I might go to college someday. Hope licked his face. Chance wagged his tail. Yeah, he laughed. I think that means you approve. His mom found them like that. Jamal on the floor, one dog in his lap, the other trying to steal his shoelaces. Having fun? Mr. Thompson talked about scholarships. The words still felt strange. For college, she sat beside him, letting Hope climb into her lap. Baby, the way things are going, sky's the limit. That weekend, they went shopping for work clothes, real shopping, not thrift stores. His mom tried on suits and dresses, looking more confident with each one. Never thought I'd need a wardrobe for business meetings, she said, studying her reflection. Sunday afternoon, Mr. Thompson invited them to his house for lunch. The mansion made Jamal's steps falter. 43 steps, Mr. Thompson said quietly. From sidewalk to door. Inside, Hope and Chance had free run of the place. They led Jamal to their special room, a converted sun porch full of toys and beds. They sleep here now, Mr. Thompson explained. Sarah's old reading room. She'd have liked that. Over lunch, he talked about Sarah's work with rescue dogs. How she believed every animal deserved a chance. How she'd have loved what Jamal did. Which reminds me, he pulled out a folder. The city shelter needs volunteers. Teenagers welcome. With parent permission. Jamal looked at his mom. She nodded. Every Saturday? He read the form. Really? If you're interested. Mr. Thompson smiled. They could use a guardian angel. The next week brought more changes. His mom got her first real paycheck. More money than 2 months at the diner. She cried when she saw the numbers. We can move, she said that night. Get a better place. But Jamal thought about their small house. His room. The empty lot where it all started. Change is good, baby. She hugged him. You taught me that. At school, his English teacher asked him to tutor younger kids. You have a way of explaining things, she said. Making them clear. Like showing scared puppies they were safe. Like building shelter from broken things. Saturday morning, he went to the shelter. The staff showed him around, kennels full of hopeful eyes, wagging tails. Sometimes they just need someone to see them, the manager said. Someone to care. Jamal understood that now. That afternoon, covered in dog hair and slobber, he felt something settle in his chest. Like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Mr. Thompson picked him up, driving him to the office for a special puppy visit. How was it, he asked. Good. Jamal watched the city pass. There's this one dog, really shy. Kind of like Chance was. Oh, yeah, just needs someone to be patient. Mr. Thompson's smile reached his eyes. Sounds familiar. Hope and Chance went crazy when they arrived, like they hadn't seen him in years instead of days. Their joy filled the room, spilled into the hallway. They're getting big, Jamal noticed. Growing strong. Mr. Thompson watched them play. Like someone else I know. Later, driving home, Jamal thought about changes. About empty jars becoming full hearts. About 43 steps leading somewhere new. His phone buzzed. A text from his mom. Dinner at 6. Celebrating. What's the occasion? He wrote back. Life, she answered. Just life? He understood that too now. 6 months passed like pages turning. Spring brought new leaves to the trees and fresh paint to Jamal's new room. The apartment complex had a pool, a gym, and most importantly, a clear policy allowing pets. Not that Hope and Chance needed it anymore. They had their forever home with Mr. Thompson, their days filled with toys and treats and endless love. But knowing they could visit mattered. "Ready?" His mom called from the kitchen. Saturday morning sun streamed through clean windows. "Coming." The shelter waited, full of animals needing what Hope and Chance once did, someone to see them, to care. Jamal had become their favorite volunteer, the one who could coax scared dogs from corners, earn trust with patience. "You've got the touch," the shelter manager always said. Today was special. A family was coming to meet the shy dog Jamal had been working with. A German Shepherd mix named Shadow who reminded him so much of Chance. "Hey, buddy." He knelt by Shadow's kennel. The dog's tail wagged, tentative but real. "Today might be your day." His phone buzzed, a text from Mr. Thompson. A photo of Hope and Chance in the office, wearing new bandanas that said, "Therapy Dog in Training." Sarah's Foundation is starting a new program. The message read, "These two will help scared kids feel brave. Like someone helped them once." Jamal smiled, remembering newspapers behind a dumpster. How far they'd all come. The family arrived at 10, parents and 2 kids, looking nervous but excited. Shadow pressed against Jamal's leg, watching. "He's shy at first," Jamal explained. "But watch this." He demonstrated the tricks they'd been practicing. Shadow sat, stayed, gave paw, each move earning gentle praise. The younger kid giggled when Shadow licked his hand. The parents exchanged looks. That same look Mr. Thompson had, seeing Hope and Chance that first day. "We'll take him," they decided. Jamal helped with the paperwork, explained Shadow's favorite toys, his special signals. His heart ached a little, watching them drive away. "You okay?" the manager asked. "Yeah." He meant it. "He'll be happy." His phone buzzed again. "Mom, this time. Lunch at Thompson's? The puppies miss you." Except they weren't really puppies anymore. Hope and Chance had grown into beautiful dogs, their rough start visible only in their endless gratitude for simple things: warm beds, full bowls, gentle hands. Mr. Thompson's driver picked him up. The mansion didn't intimidate him anymore. 43 steps felt like coming home. "There he is." Mr. Thompson opened the door as 2 furry bodies crashed into Jamal, knocking him back. "Guys," he laughed, letting them cover his face in kisses. "I just saw you yesterday." "They have good news," Mr. Thompson said, helping him up. "Show him you too." Hope and Chance sat perfectly, their new bandanas gleaming. Therapy dogs. They'd help scared kids feel safe, show them that love could change everything. Over lunch, Mr. Thompson talked about expanding Sarah's Foundation. More scholarships, more rescue support, more chances for change. "We need a youth coordinator," he said casually. "Someone who understands both kids and animals. For summer, to start." Jamal almost choked on his sandwich. "Me? You're 14 now. Old enough for a real job." Mr. Thompson smiled. "If you're interested." Yes." The word burst out. "Absolutely yes." His mom laughed from the doorway. "Told you he'd say that." Later, they walked the dogs in the massive backyard. Hope chased butterflies while Chance leaned against Jamal's leg, content just to be close. Shadow got adopted today, Jamal told them. "Nice family. Kids to play with." Hope barked like she understood. Chance wagged his tail. "You guys started this, you know?" He scratched their ears. "All of it." The scholarship papers sat on his desk at home, waiting. The summer job would let him start his own savings. Not for shoes this time, but for dreams. His mom's promotion came with benefits, stability. No more double shifts or empty afternoons. No more counting steps past nice houses, wishing for better things. Better things had come, brought by 2 hungry puppies and a choice to care. That night, he passed the empty lot on his way home from the corner store. The old shelter was gone, the dumpster replaced by a community garden project. But if he looked closely, he could still see it. Newspapers in the rain, 2 pairs of trusting eyes. The moment everything changed. His phone buzzed. Another photo from Mr. Thompson. Hope and Chance asleep in Sarah's reading room, peaceful and safe. Guardian angels come in all sizes, the message read. In his new room, the old shoe jar sat on a shelf. Empty now, but somehow full of everything that mattered. He picked it up, studying his reflection in the glass. Not a poor kid with worn-out shoes anymore. Just someone who learned that the biggest changes start with the smallest choices. That love given returns tenfold. That everyone deserves a chance. Hope barked in the photo on his phone. Forever happy, forever free. Chance slept beside her. Forever safe, forever home. And Jamal smiled, knowing some things didn't need to be counted anymore. Some things just needed to be lived.